Distant children's laughter, markers squeaking on paper, the faint hum of fluorescent lights. The classroom was ordinary, bright, noisy, filled with the restless energy of 8-year-olds. At the window sat a boy named Eli Turner, quiet, withdrawn, drawing as if the paper itself breathed under his hand. At first, Miss Clark, the teacher, didn't pay much attention. Eli always drew trees, rooftops, the playground. Until one morning she noticed something strange. There were figures in every drawing. Not people. Shadows. Tall, thin shapes standing among the children, with no faces, no hands, like silhouettes cut out of ash. She knelt beside him. "Eli, who are these?" He looked up calmly. "They're always here," he said quietly. "You just don't look long enough." Miss Clark forced a smile. "Is this from a book? A film?" He shook his head. "No, but one of them wants to go home today." Classroom noise fading, paper rustling. Miss Clark frowned, but before she could ask more, the bell rang. Children rushed outside laughing. Everyone except Eli. He stayed and kept drawing. By lunchtime, police were at the school. One of the students, a girl from Eli's class, never came back from recess. Her coat still lay on the bench. Miss Clark, shaken, returned to the classroom. Eli was finishing a new drawing. The playground again, but empty this time. Only one small figure in the corner. Beneath it, in soft pencil, he had written, "She left her shadow behind. I'll draw it back tonight." Rain tapping on windows, school bell echoing, pages rustling. A week passed. The school looked the same, but the air had changed. Heavier, quieter, as if everyone felt something was about to happen again. Miss Clark checked the students' drawings as usual. Children drew animals, houses, suns. But Eli's drawings were different. The same gray schoolyard, and now new shadows, more of them. She approached him carefully. "Eli, why are you drawing this again?" He shrugged. "Because they didn't leave." "Who didn't?" He looked at the window. The ones who were standing with her. A chill crawled up Miss Clark's back. "With who, Eli?" "The girl. She went with them, but she left her shadow here." He stopped speaking, as if he'd said something forbidden. When class ended, Miss Clark gathered all his drawings and put them into a folder. The lines felt wrong, too confident, too precise, as if the child wasn't imagining things, he was observing them. Switch clicks, empty classroom ambiance. Later, when the school was nearly empty, she stayed behind to grade papers, but her mind kept drifting back to Eli. What did he know? How? She pulled his latest drawing from the folder. A staircase. At the bottom, a small figure with a long, stretched shadow. On the steps, footprints leading upward, toward the teacher's office. Miss Clark frowned. She closed the folder, but the drawing stayed in her mind, as if the lines were still moving beneath the paper. Soft knock. Door creaks. Eli stood in the doorway, silent, motionless. "Eli, what are you doing here?" he whispered. "You're standing in the wrong place. They're behind you." She turned sharply. Nobody. Just walls and the dull reflection in the window. When she looked back, Eli was gone. Only a fresh sheet lay on the desk, a drawing of her office, and two figures in the corner, faceless, shadowless. Clock ticking, paper rustling softly, rain tapping on glass. The next morning, Miss Clark arrived at school early. Her classroom felt colder than usual, as if someone had opened the windows at dawn and forgotten to close them. She sat at her desk, pulled out Eli's folder of drawings, and turned on the small lamp beside her. Everything was in the same order, except for one new sheet slipped between the older ones, a page she hadn't seen before. She unfolded it, and her chest tightened. It was her, drawn with unsettling precision. Her jacket, her glasses, the way she stood with one shoulder slightly forward. She stood at the board. Behind her, in the corner, a tall shadow stretched along the wall, not quite human, but unmistakably watching her. Its face was her own, smeared and distorted, as if someone rubbed charcoal across the paper. Light crackled from the lamp. A cold draft. Miss Clark dropped the drawing. It slid across the floor. The classroom door opened quietly. Eli stood there. No backpack, no coat, just a pencil in his hand. "You're early," she managed to say. He nodded. "I didn't sleep. He wouldn't let me." She swallowed. "Who?" Eli stepped forward slightly. "The one inside the drawings. He says I drew him wrong, so now he has to draw me back." Her throat tightened. "Eli, where did this page come from?" He looked down at his shoes. "It was already here this morning." She bent down, picked up the drawing and walked toward the trash bin. "We'll throw it away. It's just paper." But then, she saw something at the bottom of the page that hadn't been there before. The faint outline of letters darkened right before her eyes, as if rising through the graphite. "He draws from the other side of the glass." Lamp flickers. Window rattles. The lights dimmed. The window trembled. She turned toward it, and in the reflection she saw herself standing closer than she actually was, too close. Her reflected self leaned forward slightly and smiled, a small, unnatural smile. Miss Clark gasped and spun around. Nothing, just empty desks. But when she looked down at the drawing in her hands, the image had changed. Her drawn figure now stood at the window exactly as she did moments ago, and behind her, a blurred dark shape, growing clearer as if waiting to step out of the paper. She let the page fall from her hands. Eli watched her silently, then whispered, barely audible. You're part of it now. Wind against windows, light rain tapping, distant hallway chatter fading out. The next day, Miss Clark avoided looking at the windows. Every reflective surface, the classroom door, the metal cabinet, even her phone, felt wrong, too slow, like reality needed a moment to catch up. She told herself it was stress, lack of sleep, simple paranoia. But as she taught, she couldn't shake the feeling that the glass around her was watching. Soft whisper of paper, children's pencils scratching. During class, she noticed Eli again. He was drawing, but not looking at his paper. He stared at the window instead. His hand moved on its own, as if copying something he saw there. She approached. Eli, what are you drawing now? He didn't look away from the glass. The other class. A chill ran through her. What other class? He pointed with his pencil, slowly, to the one behind the glass. They do what we do, but a little later. Miss Clark looked at the drawing. The window was perfectly sketched, and behind it, the silhouettes of students, her students, only still, too still, as if frozen mid-motion, caught in a moment they hadn't lived yet. She snatched the page from him and shoved it into the drawer. Eli simply whispered, "That won't stop them. They're already learning how to move." School bell. Hallway echo. When the day ended and the children left, Miss Clark remained. The classroom felt wrong in the dim evening light, as if its shape had stretched, become a distorted version of itself. She walked to the window. At first, she saw only her own reflection. She lifted her hand to her face, and her reflection didn't. Her breath caught. She moved left. Her reflection stayed still. Light crack in the window frame. A soft, unnatural hum. She leaned closer. Her reflection's head tilted, but not in sync. It tilted first. Miss Clark backed away. Her heel hit the leg of a desk. She turned. The classroom was empty. She turned again. In the glass, her reflected self stood right at the window, closer than she could ever stand, face almost pressed to the surface. Its eyes were darker, wide, unblinking. The window pane trembled. Words appeared, slowly, as if someone traced them from the other side with a fingertip. Finally, you're looking. Miss Clark stumbled back. A chair falls over. Sharp breath. She grabbed the curtains and yanked them across the window, but the fabric barely moved, as if heavy, waterlogged. When she finally managed to pull them shut, the reflection blurred, but didn't disappear. She could still see two faint eyes through the thin cloth, watching, waiting, as if the glass itself wanted to speak again. The next morning, the curtains were wide open, and on the glass, where her reflection had stood, a single, perfectly clear handprint remained, pressed from the inside. Early morning silence. Fluorescent lights buzzing faintly. Chairs scraping across the floor. When Miss Clark entered the classroom the next day, something felt distorted. Not wrong, just slightly shifted, as if the room had been rebuilt from memory instead of reality. The angles were off. Shadows fell in places where light didn't reach. The air felt thicker, like it was holding its breath. She moved toward the board and glanced at the window. Her reflection stood there, a half step behind her. Not mirroring, not sinking, just standing. Slow, faint creak of the window frame. During the lesson, she noticed Eli again. He wasn't drawing the room. He was drawing the reflection of the room. A near-perfect copy, same desks, same windows, same children, but with one subtle difference. In the reflected classroom, one boy stood by the wall, while in the real one, he sat at his desk. Miss Clark blinked, looked again. Now the drawing matched reality. She swallowed hard. When the students left for the day, she stayed behind. She approached the window slowly, holding her phone like a shield. She turned on the camera, wanting proof, wanting something tangible to prove she wasn't losing her mind. At first, the image on her phone matched perfectly. Then, a flicker. Static crackle, like an old TV turning on. The reflected classroom brightened, colors deepened, and Miss Clark felt pressure in her ears, like a shift in air pressure. She raised her hand. The real hand moved. The reflected one paused, then followed. A full second later. She stepped closer, her reflection leaned in, but not toward her, toward the glass, as if trying to look deeper into her world. Her breath fogged the window, but in the reflection, her reflected breath did not appear. It simply stared back, unblinking. Soft vibration of the window, a deep, distant hum. Then the reflected light changed. The room behind the glass shifted slightly, as though someone adjusted a camera angle from inside the mirror. The desks moved, the shadows lengthened. A figure appeared near the board. Tall, still, its edges blurred. And then, Eli's voice behind her. They're almost caught up. She spun around. He stood in the doorway, pale, quiet, watching. What does that mean, Eli? He stepped inside. There are 2 classrooms now. She shook her head. No, there is only one. Eli pointed at the window. Theirs and ours. But theirs is tired of being behind. The window pane trembled again. Her reflection leaned closer, uncomfortably close, until its forehead nearly touched the glass. Its lips parted, but no words came. Only a soft distortion in the air, like heat from asphalt. Miss Clark felt something shift behind her. A desk, moving slightly, without being touched. She turned, but everything was in place. When she looked back at the window, Her reflection was gone. Only the classroom behind the glass remained. Empty, still, waiting. A long deep hum, almost a drumbeat. Eli whispered beside her, "Once they move in sync, someone has to switch places." Miss Clark's pulse hammered. "And who decides that?" Eli looked at her, a strange, sad expression in his eyes. "The glass does," he said softly, "and it already chose who goes first." Hollow corridor echo. Low electric hum. Soft rustling of papers behind the walls. Miss Clark stepped out of the classroom, but the hallway didn't look right. It was the same school. Same posters, same lockers, same dull yellow lights. Yet it felt compressed, as if the building had been rebuilt from memory rather than brick. The fluorescent lights flickered above her, but the flicker didn't match the sound. The hum came first, the light followed. Always 1 second late. She walked slowly down the hallway, her footsteps sounding softer than they should, as if the floor was absorbing the noise. She passed the display case near the cafeteria and caught sight of her reflection, only it wasn't looking at her. It faced straight ahead, even when she stopped walking. Glass tapping softly, like a fingernail. She turned toward it fully. The reflected hallway behind her looked normal, but she was missing from it. No silhouette, no shadow, nothing. Her pulse spiked. She backed away from the glass, and the absence backed away too. A blank space where she should have been. Then she heard footsteps, soft, measured, too slow for a running child, too heavy for a teacher. She turned sharply. A figure stood at the far end of the hallway. Tall, thin, perfectly still, silhouetted by the flickering lights. She blinked. The figure blinked too, but not at the same time. It blinked first. Lights buzzing irregularly. Something shifts in the walls. Miss Clark forced herself to walk toward the classroom, toward the only familiar place left. But halfway there, she noticed something that made her stop. The classroom door had writing on it. Fresh, scratched into the paint as if by a small, determined hand. "Stay with your shadow." Her breath hitched. She touched the letters, and the door felt warm. Very warm. A soft voice came from behind her. "Miss Clark." She spun around. Eli stood in the hallway. But something was wrong. His clothes looked faded, like a washed-out photograph, and the edges of his outline blurred into the air. "Eli, where are we?" He blinked slowly. "On the inside." "The inside of what?" she whispered. He turned his head toward the display case, toward the glass, the part that watches. The lights above them flickered, but this time the reflection flickered first. Miss Clark felt the floor tilt ever so slightly beneath her feet, like the building was adjusting its position to fit her inside. Soft, distant knock, as if from deep underwater. She whispered, terrified, "Eli, how do we get out?" He looked up at her. For the first time, fear flickered in his voice. "We don't." Not unless someone on the outside opens the door. What door? Eli pointed behind her, toward her classroom, toward the blackboard. In this world, the blackboard wasn't flat. It pulsed, slowly, as if air moved beneath it, as if it were breathing. The surface bulged once, and the faint outline of a hand pushed against the inside. Eli whispered, trembling, "She's still trying to get out. But I don't think it's you anymore." Low rumble, chalk tapping, a slow, distorted breath behind the wall. Miss Clark approached the blackboard, the one that was no longer a board at all. Up close, the surface looked wrong. Too smooth, too dark, like a sheet of polished stone with something trapped underneath. Eli stayed behind her, small and pale in the dim hallway light. She raised her hand, didn't touch it yet, just hovered. The surface bulged outward, a faint swell like a lung pushing air against a rib cage. She gasped, stumbled back. A muffled thud from inside the wall, something dragging. The bulge receded, then returned, sharper this time, more defined. A hand, pressing from the other side. Fingers, palm, knuckles. Human, but too long. "Eli," she whispered. "What is trying to come through?" He shook his head. "It's not what. It's who." Her throat tightened. "Is it me?" He looked down. Not anymore. The blackboard cracked, a thin, perfect line running straight down the center. Miss Clark reached for Eli's hand, but he stepped back, away from her. "Why are you?" He shook his head sharply. "No, you're not supposed to be near it." "Why?" "Because the door chooses whoever stands closest." Cracking intensifies. A breath escapes the board. She backed away, but the air behind her thickened, as if the hallway itself was pushing her toward the wall. The hair on her arms lifted. Pressure built in her ears, and the crack widened. A sliver of white light split the room in two. A silhouette leaned through the crack, her shape, her height, her posture, but the head was turned incorrectly, tilted too far to one side, as if trying to examine her like a specimen. The thing whispered, not with a voice, but with the movement of the crack itself. "Almost open." Miss Clark staggered back, heart pounding, legs shaking. Eli whispered urgently, "You have to stay away from it. If it reaches you, it will replace you." She shook her head violently. No, this isn't real." But then, the silhouette inside the crack shifted and smiled. Not with lips, with the curvature of the crack, warping into an upward curve as if the wall itself grinned. The board splits wider. Air rushes outward. The figure reached out, its hand pressing through the thinning surface like a shadow emerging from water. Fingers stretched toward her. Too familiar, too precise. Her own hand. Miss Clark screamed and stumbled backward, but slammed against something solid. She spun around. Nothing, just empty air. But she couldn't move, couldn't step away. The hallway held her in place like invisible hands on her shoulders. The crack opened further. The silhouette stepped forward. 1 foot into her world. Then, silent. Icy. Eli whispered behind her, voice trembling. "It isn't a doorway anymore." "What is it then?" she choked out. He swallowed hard. "A trade." Final snap of the board splitting wide open. Light erupts. Miss Clark shielded her eyes, but even through her hands she saw it happen. Her reflection, the thing that wore her shape, stepped out. Fully. Slowly. Like stepping out of a photograph into the real world. And she realized the crack wasn't letting someone in. It was letting her replacement out. Deep, distant hum. The soft crackle of cooling glass. Footsteps echoing in an empty hall. The creature, or reflection, stood fully in the hallway now. It had her posture, her clothing, her face, but none of the warmth or uncertainty that made her human. Its eyes were wrong. Not dark, not empty. Focused, as if it had been rehearsing how to use them. It studied her carefully, like a mirror learning its owner. Miss Clark staggered back, but something behind her pressed forward, guiding her closer to the crack in the blackboard. Eli grabbed her sleeve. "Don't let it touch you. If it touches you, it decides." "Decides what?" she whispered. He didn't answer. He didn't need to. The meaning was already slipping into her mind like cold water between her ribs. A soft step, too soft to be human. Her double moved. Not violently, but with strange grace, a perfect imitation of the version of her she never noticed. It walked toward her, its head tilting at an unnatural angle as if examining prey. Miss Clark tried to step away, but her foot stuck to the floor. The hallway felt like thick syrup, dragging her down, holding her close to the crack behind her. Eli's breath hitched. He stepped between her and the double. "Stop," he told it. "You can't choose her yet." The double paused. Its head rotated slowly, studying the boy. Then it smiled, a slow, uncanny stretch of her own lips. A soft, wet sound from inside the crack, a breath, a pulse. Something was still inside the board, still pushing, still forming, still coming through. A replacement for a replacement. A pair. Miss Clark's vision blurred. The hallway wavered, walls bending slightly, lights dragging trails behind their flicker. Her senses felt doubled. She could hear her own breathing, and someone else breathing, exactly the same way, half a second earlier. She pressed a hand to her chest. "Eli, I don't feel right." He didn't look at her. He watched the double, and the double watched him. "They don't want just one," Eli murmured. "They want the one who notices." Notices what? He finally turned to her, and his eyes looked older than his age. Notices them. The double stepped forward again. Eli raised his hand as if shielding her, but the hallway behind Miss Clark grew darker, heavier. She looked over her shoulder. The crack was wider. The white light inside had dimmed to a deep, suffocating gray. The thing inside was closer to the surface, close enough to breathe. A hot exhale pressed against her back. Breath, slow, damp, unmistakably real. Miss Clark froze. She couldn't turn around. She couldn't move. Her double whispered, with her own voice, but smoother, emptier. "Someone has to take the first step." Eli shouted, "Don't listen to it!" But she already felt something behind her, fingers brushing the edge of the crack, curling outward, searching for her shoulder. She gasped, and the hallway shifted suddenly, like a camera snapping into focus. Eli's voice came sharp and terrified. "If you move toward the crack, you're the one who goes through." She tried to step forward, toward the hallway, toward him, but the air felt like a wall. Her double lifted its hand and placed it gently against Eli's shoulder. Eli didn't flinch. He just whispered, "Broken, it's already choosing." Inside the crack, a second silhouette leaned forward, taller, wrongly proportioned, waiting for the one who would replace her. Miss Clark felt her body pulled backward, a gentle, patient force, the way the ocean reclaims a wave. Her double smiled wider and whispered, "You're the one who steps out last." Sharp crack, like bone or thick wood bending. Air rushes inward. The world flickered. Once, and then everything went silent. Deep, oppressive silence. The soft pop of cooling walls. A faint echo, like someone stepping far away. Miss Clark opened her eyes slowly. The world felt brighter. Too bright. Like someone had scrubbed all the shadows away and left only outlines. She was standing. She didn't remember standing. Her legs felt stiff, her breath steady, too steady. She turned her head. The hallway stretched before her, perfectly straight, perfectly clean. Not a sound, not a single footstep. No Eli, no double, no crack in the blackboard. It was as if nothing had ever happened. She swallowed. Her throat felt new, like the first inhale after drowning. A faint classroom chair scraping far away. Then silence again. She walked toward the classroom. Her movements were smooth, unbroken, precise, like she was following a path already rehearsed. The door creaked open. The room was empty. Absolutely empty. No backpacks, no drawings, no signs of life. Just dust floating in the air, slow and heavy, like it hadn't been disturbed in years. Miss Clark stepped inside. The floorboards felt wrong under her feet, as if remembering another set of footsteps. Her own? Someone else's? She couldn't tell. She approached the blackboard. It was perfectly smooth, perfectly clean. Not a single crack, not even a scratch. But when she leaned closer, she saw faint lines beneath the surface, like fingerprints pressed into stone from the other side. A low hum, barely audible, like a breath held too long. Something on a desk caught her eye. A piece of paper, fresh, white, placed neatly in the center of the front row. She lifted it. It was a drawing. A classroom. This classroom. Empty. Identical. Except In the front row sat a single figure, thin, still, its face shaded over completely in dark graphite. Beneath the drawing, in small, careful handwriting, someone had written, "She didn't come back alone." Her hand trembled, only for a moment. Just one. Then it stopped trembling. Completely. Her breath steadied again. Again, too steady. She stepped back, holding the drawing, and glanced toward the window. Her reflection stared back at her, but it wasn't delayed anymore. It wasn't out of sync. It wasn't independent. It was perfect. Perfectly aligned. Perfectly obedient. And then, very slowly, it smiled first. Soft, sharp tap on the glass. A whisper behind her. Too close to be human. Class dismissed.